I mean, he had Tom bloodied up, and Tom didn't want to continue in the fight.
Look, I might look like an idiot. Sometimes I might even talk like an idiot, but when it comes to fighting, I know what I'm talking about.
So listen to this. Tom Aspinall has been quietly positioning himself for a potential jump to the PFL. And after dealing with months of tension over matchmaking decisions and how the UFC has handled his situation, the move he just made might actually confirm what we've all been thinking. This whole thing is absolutely huge, and we need to break down every single detail because there are so many layers to this story. Let's get right into it.
Well, listen, I didn't continue. I'll tell you why I didn't continue. Because I'm not a dummy. Like, I'm not going to go out there and fight one of the best strikers in the world if I can't see.
With double vision.
With any eye. Look.
I mean, the guy had Tom all bloodied up, and Tom basically said he couldn't keep going in that fight. Now, before we really get into this insane rabbit hole of backstage drama, before we start peeling back all these layers of controversy, frustration, and betrayal that have brought us to this massive turning point in heavyweight division history, we've got to go back to where this whole mess actually started. And I'm talking about the real beginning of all this chaos.
What's been going on in your exciting life for the last 5 weeks?
Oh, mate, I've been having a lovely time just in and out of hospital, getting all kinds of different tests done on my eyes and speaking to specialists, speaking to surgeons, speaking to doctors. Oh, it's been a fantastic time.
We need to discuss what really happened on October 25th, 2025, at the Eddie Hearn Arena in Abu Dhabi, during an event that was supposed to establish Tom Aspinall as one of the most dominant heavyweight champions in UFC history. UFC 3T1 was promoted as this incredible stylistic matchup. You had Aspinall's explosive wrestling and crushing ground control going against Gaines' elite striking and incredible footwork. This marked Aspinall's first defense of his undisputed heavyweight championship, a title he had spent years grinding to achieve, climbing through the rankings one fight at a time, and the pressure on both men stepping into that octagon under those bright lights was absolutely immense.
I was very disappointed. Yeah, very disappointed.
If he would have come up and said, poked in the eye, illegal, couldn't see, couldn't continue, serious injury, etc., people would have laid off. They would have taken cues from him.
It definitely didn't help the cause. Definitely didn't.
The fight began pretty much exactly how everyone expected it would play out. Those opening exchanges were competitive and thrilling, with Gain connecting on clean strikes that opened up Aspinall's nose pretty significantly, while Aspinall kept pushing forward relentlessly, with his trademark takedown attempts, trying to pull the French striker into those deep, treacherous grappling exchanges where he knew he could take control and dominate. The atmosphere inside that arena was absolutely buzzing with fans completely locked in, sensing they were watching a bout that could legitimately swing either way at any second. But then at exactly 4 minutes and 35 seconds into round one, something occurred that would alter the entire course of Tom Aspinall's career, and I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that.
I've spoken to the UFC since, but I've not spoken to... Me and Danny don't really speak like that anyway, so...
While both men were exchanging shots in close quarters, Gaines' outstretched fingers caught Aspinall in both eyes at the same time, an unintentional but completely devastating illegal strike, according to UFC regulations. Aspinall instantly showed distress to the official, clutching his face and telling referee Jason Herzog directly that his vision was completely gone, like he couldn't make out anything whatsoever. What followed next absolutely stunned the entire MMA world globally.
Has he sent you a text or DM in the aftermath? Hope you're feeling better.
No, nothing like that. Nothing like that. He actually, like I said, he started giving updates that there was nothing wrong with my eye when that isn't the case.
Following a brief medical assessment by the cage-side physician, the official ruled the fight a no contest, since Aspinall was determined unable to safely continue due to how serious the eye damage was. And that quickly, what should have been Tom Aspinall's defining moment, his ultimate triumph, became one of the most debated incidents in recent UFC heavyweight division history.
So you're not too happy then on what the president of the organization is saying towards it?
Well, what do you think?
Tom didn't want to continue in the fight, so.
Look, we all know who is at fault here. What the are you talking about, huh?
And off the back of that, Tom, what have the UFC said?
Hunter Campbell, who I deal with personally, he's just said if they can help out in any way with doctors and stuff like that, that's what they'll do.
Now you're probably thinking, all right, it was just an accident. These fouls happen in combat sports constantly. Where's the controversy? Well, let me break down exactly why this became such a massive problem. Because the aftermath of this one moment has been absolutely disastrous for everyone involved.
And obviously you've been a massive help to the UFC. You've taken a fight on 2 weeks' notice. You've taken a fight in the middle of the night, been backup fighter for Jones versus Miocic, and then obviously the whole John Jones saga. How do you sort of see this going forward for yourself with the UFC?
I think right now we just got to focus on the health, innit? We just got to get everything back to normal, follow the doctor's orders, and that's all I can control right now. So we'll cross that bridge when I'm feeling better and everything's right.
Right after the fight ended, Aspinall faced intense backlash from huge portions of the MMA fan base online and throughout various media outlets. Social platforms completely exploded with claims that he had overplayed how bad the injury really was, that he didn't have the genuine fighting spirit to battle through the difficulty despite similar fouls that other competitors have managed to overcome previously. The hate was constant, it was vicious, and it got extremely personal, going after his heart and his courage.
Well, look, if you were sidelined from doing your job for like 15 months, not allowed to do anything, you train your off for 6 months for a fight, then to get double eye pokes, be left with no vision for nearly 6 weeks because of an illegal move. How do you think I feel? Not feeling fantastic, am I?
But here's where everything took a completely unexpected turn. Here's where the real chaos started unfolding in ways that would leave the entire combat sports community in complete shock, because it wasn't just random internet trolls questioning Tom Aspinall's choice to end the fight and accept the no contest. It was Dana White himself, the president of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, the single most influential person in all of mixed martial arts.
A big shout out to everyone who has stuck there by me. A lot of haters out there who are living some very sad lives, who think they're eye doctors and have never... Listen, I'll double eye poke you full blast in the eyes and see if you can still write some grim comment on Instagram or YouTube or whatever. You let me know, you tough guys out there.
Aspinall's exact words right there from Dana White during that press conference. Tom didn't want to continue. Not Tom was medically unable to continue. Not Tom was physically incapable of continuing because of serious injury. Dana White actively fed into this harmful story during the post-fight media session, saying only Tom knows what really happened and heavily suggesting through his delivery and phrasing that the choice to quit might show Aspinall's lack of desire to fight rather than actual medical emergency. He expanded on this in follow-up interviews over the next several days, basically saying that, as far as they could tell from their position, there's no detached retina, no real eye damage based on what he claimed were initial cage-side evaluations from the doctor. These statements from the most powerful figure in mixed martial arts, the person who controls everything within the UFC, absolutely threw fuel on an already massive fire of debate. Certain fans started calling Aspinall a quitter straight up, or suggesting he smartly exploited the foul as an escape route because Gane had built early momentum and the fight wasn't developing in his favor. The story was taking shape in real time across social platforms and MMA discussion boards, and it definitely wasn't developing in Tom Aspinall's favor at all. But what nobody understood then, what the entire world was about to learn in the following weeks, when the actual medical results were released, was that Tom Aspinall's injury was far more serious than anyone, including Dana White, had publicly admitted to the press and fans. And when the reality finally emerged with legitimate medical proof, it would reveal a huge divide between the UFC's heavyweight champion and the promotion that might never heal regardless of what comes next. The debate mostly died down in the weeks after the event, as focus naturally moved to other UFC shows and news stories. But then around November, Aspinall ended his silence with detailed medical reports and public comments that would completely justify everything he had claimed from day one about how severe his injury actually was. The medical documentation posted on social platforms and discussed in interviews showed bilateral eye trauma from the poke, including major orbital soft tissue swelling, a small fracture of the right medial orbital wall, and ongoing double vision that wouldn't resolve regardless of what treatments he attempted, But that wasn't even the most serious part of the diagnosis. Believe it or not, Aspinall was diagnosed with Brown syndrome, an uncommon movement disorder where the superior oblique tendon restricts upward eye motion, potentially triggered by swelling or direct trauma to the orbital area. This isn't some minor discomfort that you can just power through. This is a legitimate medical issue that might actually need surgical procedures on both eyes if traditional treatments don't fix the problem over time. That medical documentation right there shows you everything you need to understand about why Tom Aspinall made the tough choice he made in that situation. He wasn't acting cowardly in any sense. He wasn't giving up because the fight was becoming challenging or because he was falling behind on the scorecards. He was safeguarding his future health and his whole career from lasting injury caused by an illegal strike that he had no control over. And yet, despite all this comprehensive medical proof from real specialists, despite the diagnosis from actual eye specialists who understand what they're dealing with, the harm to his reputation and his connection with UFC management had already happened and couldn't be reversed. You can feel the anger and pain coming through in every single word when he does interviews. 5 straight weeks of medical appointments, numerous specialist visits, and extensive testing, all while internet keyboard warriors called him weak and questioned his heart and dedication as a competitor. This is the brutal reality that Tom Aspinall has been dealing with every day since UFC 3T1, and it's brought him closer and closer to his breaking point with the promotion he once committed his whole career to building up and representing with honor. Now that you see the complete situation, now that you understand the medical truth of what he was facing while the entire internet was calling him a coward and a quitter, we need to discuss what came after UFC, because it shows a troubling pattern from UFC leadership that has driven their heavyweight champion to his absolute limit. When Tom Aspinall appeared for his first major interview since the bout on the Ariel Helwani show, which is one of the biggest platforms in MMA media, he didn't hold anything back about his real emotions. He didn't try to soften his feelings or play political games. He put everything out there for the whole world to hear and decide for themselves. And what he shared about his relationship, or total absence of one, with Dana White was absolutely shocking to hear from the current heavyweight champion. Think about that for a moment. If Dana White had just immediately come forward and backed his heavyweight champion publicly, if he had simply recognized how serious the injury was based on real medical evidence and supported Aspinall's choice to protect his health and vision, the entire conversation would have changed completely in Aspinall's favor. The fan base would have followed the boss's lead like they always do, but instead, Dana picked a totally different approach, one that abandoned his champion to face the criticism all by himself. The UFC heavyweight champion of the world, the person who holds the most valuable title in the most important division of the biggest mixed martial arts promotion on the planet, has never developed a real connection with the president of that same organization beyond quick hellos. He's never had a substantial conversation beyond casual greetings at events. And after suffering a potentially career-ending injury in the headliner of a major pay-per-view show, Dana White never called to check on him. He didn't send a message. He didn't even reach out on social media to see how he was doing or show support. Aspinall expressed serious frustration about the total absence of direct contact from White. He pointed out that while UFC executive Hunter Campbell provided support for medical requirements and care, White gave public statements to reporters claiming no major eye damage without ever speaking to him directly or asking about his actual condition. This is the same person who accepted fights on short notice to help the company. This is the same person who served as a backup for Jones versus Music, sitting ringside prepared to step in. This is the same person who waited patiently for 15 months for his title opportunity while the UFC focused on other fights that generated more revenue. And this is the treatment he receives from the Torrigan he sacrificed so much for throughout his career. But the problems go much deeper than just the eye poke situation and what happened after. Tom Aspinall's issues with the UFC have been growing for years now, not just recent months. His journey to the title included an interim championship victory, followed by unification after Jon Jones retired in June, but the extended breaks he's been forced to take, often 12 to 14 months between contests, have created ongoing questions about his activity level and the UFC's real dedication to building him as a legitimate superstar who could generate huge numbers. And this is where things become really fascinating. This is where we begin to see the financial reasons that might be pushing Tom Aspinall toward the exit and away from the UFC permanently. In October 2025, Andy Aspinall, Tom's father and longtime trainer, publicly recommended against signing any new UFC deal, highlighting the opportunity for much higher pay in professional boxing. This wasn't some random remark during a casual interview nobody would notice. This was a strategic statement meant to send a direct message to UFC executives about the Aspinall team's plans going forward. Boxing for sure. More money. Why not? Andy Aspinall told RMC Sport Combat Direct he's got 3 more bouts on his deal now, and I don't want him signing a new contract. If you reach the top level of that sport, the UFC doesn't pay anything close to what boxing offers, and the comparison that everyone in the MMA community keeps bringing up is Francis Ngannou's path after his departure. Remember, Ngannou's final UFC payday was roughly $600,000 total, but his boxing debut against Tyson Fury earned him around $10 million. That's not a small difference. That's an entirely different world of financial opportunity that the UFC simply can't compete with under their current structure. Tom Aspinall has shared this prize-fighter mentality in his own interviews, saying clearly, "You have to compete for the highest pay possible. We are risking our health and safety." Never say never about any chance, but the money issues aren't the only factor driving Aspinall away from the UFC organization. There's also the important matter of his close friendship with Ante Delija, the former PFL heavyweight champion who joined the UFC in June, and this friendship has led to one of the strangest situations in recent UFC history that has Dana White absolutely angry behind closed doors. Aspinall has publicly stated that he would actually give up his UFC heavyweight title rather than fight Delija for it, which is completely unprecedented. On the Shag and TSN Gigs podcast in October 2025, Aspinall explained his position clearly and without doubt. If he'd never won a title, we would have to fight, because that's his dream. But now I've accomplished it, I'd be like, all right, give it up, and he can have his moment. I wouldn't fight him. That's my friend. Dana White's response to this statement was typically direct and dismissive of Aspinall's feelings. I hate that. Don't even consider giving it up because you don't want to compete against someone is completely crazy. Do you notice the pattern developing here? Do you see how every interaction between Tom Aspinall and UFC leadership creates more conflict, more tension, more reasons for the heavyweight champion to consider other options for his future? The relationship is falling apart right in front of us. When Dana White finally discussed the growing problems at the UFC 32E3 press conference on December 7, 2025, he tried to take back some of his previous controversial statements, blaming the situation on miscommunication and insisting, "Never once did I say anything negative about him or disrespectful." He explained that his earlier comments were based on initial ringside reports and confirmed the UFC's active participation in Aspinall's medical treatment. But for Tom Aspinall, the damage might already be permanent and irreversible. The trust has been shattered beyond repair. The relationship, whatever it was to begin with, has been permanently damaged by weeks of public attacks and private abandonment. And now, with only 2 to 3 fights left on his UFC contract, the heavyweight champion of the world is seriously considering all his future options. Now we get to the most explosive part of this entire saga. Now we need to discuss what's actually happening behind the scenes and why this video's title isn't clickbait or hyperbole. It's the current reality of Tom Aspinall's situation right now. While Tom Aspinall remains the UFC heavyweight champion as of December 9, 2025, with no official departure announced to the public or press, the signs are clear for anyone paying attention and reading the situation carefully. The question isn't whether Tom Aspinall will leave the UFC anymore. The question is when and where he'll land next. Aspinall's link to the Professional Fighters League comes mainly through his long friendship and training relationship with Ante Delija. The 2022 PFL heavyweight champion Delija captured the PFL heavyweight tournament with TKO wins over Matthias Scheffel and Renan Ferreira, plus a decision over Shelton Graves, earning the $1 million prize as Croatia's first PFL champion in company history. Their connection comes from years as training partners at Aspinall BJJ in the UK, where they've helped each other reach elite levels. Think about everything we've covered. Think about the damaged relationship with Dana White. Think about the enormous financial potential of boxing. Think about the fact that Aspinall has clearly said he would refuse to fight Delija, even if it meant giving up his title. Delija has said the same thing publicly. He stated he would also refuse to fight Aspinall, for the championship, showing the mutual respect and brotherhood between these two competitors that goes beyond professional competition. This type of loyalty, this kind of real friendship, is uncommon in professional sports. And it's obviously something that means everything to Tom Aspinall personally. Notice how carefully Aspinall selected his words in that situation. He didn't say he was committed to the UFC long term. He didn't show enthusiasm about future fights in the organization or discuss defending the title repeatedly. He simply said they need to focus on his recovery and deal with that situation when he's feeling better. That's not the language of a champion who's completely invested in his promotion's future. That's the language of someone keeping all possibilities available. The bigger picture of this situation creates questions about fighter independence, division structure, and the balance between personal connections and professional duties in MMA. Delicia's ranking and Aspinall's championship mean a fight could theoretically happen if both keep winning, but Aspinall has made it crystal clear that he will never allow that fight to occur under any conditions. So where does that leave us? What's the most probable direction for Tom Aspinall's career? Industry insiders are predicting that Aspinall might leave the UFC when his current deal ends to chase boxing opportunities where the earning potential is dramatically higher than anything the UFC can realistically provide him. His father has been openly pushing for this direction for months now, and Aspinall himself has done nothing to dismiss the rumors or commit to the UFC's future plans. But there's another possibility that nobody is discussing openly yet, and that's where the PFL enters the picture as a potential destination. The PFL has been aggressively recruiting former UFC champions and major names, trying to establish themselves as a real competitor to the UFC's market control. And with Aspinall's strong connection to Delicia, with his anger toward UFC management reaching a boiling point, and with his goal to maximize his income during his athletic prime, a jump to the PFL isn't as unrealistic as it might first appear to casual fans. Consider this crucial factor. Tom Aspinall is 32 years old, which means his window to take advantage of his physical peak as a professional fighter is limited. Every month he spends handling injuries, contract problems, and promotional conflicts is a month he's not earning the money he deserves for risking his body and health inside that cage. That anger, that disappointment, that feeling of being abandoned by the organization he's sacrificed so much for, it's completely obvious in every statement he makes. You can hear it in his tone. You can see it in his body language during every interview. This isn't a satisfied champion enjoying his success at the sport's pinnacle. This is someone who feels disrespected, underappreciated, and ready to consider his alternatives elsewhere. Right now, Aspinall's career future remains uncertain, but not sealed. He has time to heal from his eye injury, and Dana White's statements suggest he still maintains protected status as champion within the organization. A rematch with Gane is probably planned for early 2026, possibly headlining a UK event given Aspinall's huge popularity in his homeland. But make no mistake about what's unfolding here. The countdown has started on Tom Aspinall's UFC career, with only 2 to 3 fights left on his contract, and with every sign that his team has zero intention of re-signing with the promotion. We are witnessing the final act of Tom Aspinall's UFC journey happening in real time, right in front of us. Whether he lands in boxing, earning tens of millions per fight in the PFL, reconnecting with his close friend, Delicia, or in some other opportunity entirely that we haven't even thought of yet. One thing is absolutely certain. Tom Aspinall is finished being disrespected by the organization he dedicated everything to. He's finished being undervalued while risking his health. He's finished being called a quitter by people who have never entered an octagon or been punched in their lives. And he's finished letting Dana White control the story about his career and his legacy.